Hi everyone, thanks very much to Claire and colleagues to invite me today. I'm actually speaking from India and just shows you the motivation to join this meeting.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm going to just try and share with you my screen if I may. Just give me a second.
Yeah, it's coming. That looks good, I think.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Fantastic. So, so this is my research journey, and I'm going to spend about 25 minutes or so just walking through my experiences. And so I've been a consultant now, so I call myself a clinical academic. I've been clinical academic in the region for about approximately 17 years. But my journey is interesting. So if you can see this, my journey started from my hometown, originally from India. And it's fascinating to recall from medical school, Joseph Bowlby, give me a child until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. So this was the convent boarding school that I went to in my hometown in Bihar, and learned English at boarding school and being taught by nuns and fathers. And so I owe my background to this. And I don't know whether you can see, there's a little arrow. This is me when I was 6, 7. And so that I owe my background to the humble beginnings from my convent school. And this is where I am now. Over the years, you know, my journey is from Bihar, India, to United States and England. And so I migrated at the age of 7 to England, East End, and then subsequently to South London, got a scholarship to Dulwich College, London. And then I subsequently went to Westminster Medical School and Imperial College, as it's now called, undergraduate. And the most postgraduate studies were based around London hospitals. And actually, it's really interesting because all I wanted to do was to become a GP. Really, you know, my bar was set reasonably lowish because I just wanted to become a doctor. But I was, it was really tantalizing because the research at that time when I started out as a junior doctor, the research in liver medicine was all inspiring. And I was really trained by the pioneers of you know, liver treatments and liver research, both across the Atlantic, both the United States, at Mount Sinai Hospital, and also at the Royal Free and King's College Hospital. So I spent several years, including doing a PhD at UCL Royal Free, and subsequently a postdoc and a clinical advanced fellowship at Mount Sinai. So you could say, what am I doing in South England? South East England. Well, actually, it was a combination of luck and from a personal perspective, you know, I really wanted to come back and join my family. And that's where I am now. So these are my mentors, and I think, you know, to have a really successful academic research portfolio, I think it's really important that you choose or mentor chosen for you. And I've seen over the years the guidance and the support that my mentors have provided me, from the late Professor Roger Williams, who looked after George Best, to Dame Sheila Sherlock, who mentored me almost like a son, and then Professor Michael Shilsky at Yale University, and more lately, Sir Alimuddin Zumla. So these are my mentors who I confide in, and we speak very openly about collaborations and research. And this is what I owe my career to. And this is kind of, when I was certainly at the Mount Sinai, I got very thrown in at the deep end on rare diseases. And as you can see, this is one of the first papers I published in the Lancet, together with my Royal Free and King's College. This is the importance of copper as a regulatory protein and an important mineral, of which too much can give you a rare but an important liver disease called Wilson's disease. And we published these findings in the Lancet in 2007. So that gave me the impetus. So one of my first papers, it kind of gave me the impetus to really go for it, because with the right backing, it's really the world is your oyster. And these are the other products of my labor. And this is, we described Wilson's disease in twins. Interesting that the first patient that I ever saw with Wilson's disease at the Royal Free was in London. Then when I migrated to the Mount Sinai, the second patient I saw with Wilson's disease was this chap's brother. So I got really fascinated by this really amazing disease, which unfortunately and regrettably there was no treatment really, at the time. So I morphed into other disease areas, and you can see my passion for research was growing at the time when I was at Mount Sinai, and I got very fascinated by, the relationship between xenobiotics. In other words, your surroundings, where you live, does it have any relationship to the development of liver disease? You can see, probably you might be able to appreciate the coastal line of Manhattan there in bar C there, slide C on the right. And we found a relationship between a liver disease called primary biliary cholangitis, or primary biliary cirrhosis, it was known at the time. And we found the relationship between toxicity of waste sites, Superfund toxic waste sites, otherwise known in the United States. And we found that relationship and linked that to PBC. And this is one of the most cited papers in primary biliary cirrhosis in the world. So then I moved back to the UK, and at that time it was a fascinating time to be, because before going to the United States, everything revolved on the Medical Research Council and Wellcome. And obviously I had a Wellcome training fellowship, so that put me in good stead. But when I arrived back, the scene of research in the UK had positively been embraced by the National Institute of Health and Research. It was really fascinating, because everyone was talking about NIHR and the funding that was within NIHR. And that was one of the things that drew me back to the UK. So I was first appointed to Frimley Park Hospital in 2005. And this is a real challenge, because I was the only liver doctor, actually one of two liver doctors in Southeast England. So it really made me feel that I could make a mark, really make a difference into patients' lives, both on a clinical level and a research level. And what was even more interesting is that time the NIHR was looking for speciality leads for regions. So I was the first speciality lead in liver disease, appointed in 2010, together with Professor of Gastroenterology, Hepatology, University of Surrey, subsequently in that year. And that brand and with that pedigree that I had, it allowed me to do some really interesting things I'm going to share with you even further. Of course, I moved to the Royal Surrey in 2015, became clinical director there in 2016, and then I got appointed as a joint post with King's College in 2019, and I'm now the research and development and innovation director since 2020. So as you can see, this slide is really key to when you're starting out of collaboration. It just underlines to you the huge importance of when you're starting out as a first level, second level tier investigator. You can't do it on your own now. Gone are those days where it's a single center study. Whilst we all start the single center study, but when you're now trying to build up your program, as you're gaining momentum, really important to collaborate with colleagues locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. And so building trust is extremely important, with clear expectations and timelines, with the appropriate goals and milestones, and transparency is really important when you're speaking to and liaising with colleagues you haven't either previously met, either during the pandemic or otherwise. And of course, in any discussions with colleagues, it's always important, rather than to have things down verbally, it's very important from my experience to have things written down so that you can go back and refer to your letters. And clearly, it's very important to be honest and transparent in collaborations. So in my own experience, certainly in developing really from scratch, the collaborative links between Southeast England and my network, you can see I've shared with you my collaboration with the United States. Over the years, we've developed very interesting and innovative links with Denmark, Austria, Germany, and they are cross-collaborative links, particularly in some of the international clinical trials that we do. And of course, fundamental to that has been my links with King's College Hospital, where I spend 1 to 2 days a week. Now, with my chair at the University of Surrey, that's allowed me to build the local regional research program. So I use my collaborative links with King's and my national partners really for the betterment of the research portfolio at KSS. Now, when you're starting out, it's really important, obviously funding is all important, and however small that might be, because sometimes the smaller grants can be impactful. And if you can see from and I've only listed just a couple of the grants that I've been blessed with. As you can see, from 2015 onwards now to 2022, we have, I always say we, by the way, whenever you're speaking about your research program, just be careful. Try not to say I always say we. And that way that engenders collaborative links. Anyway, we've been blessed over the years, from NIHR funding to MRC to charity money, and then more recently, rather than investigator-led programs, we were recently blessed with an infrastructure grant, which is the £1 million grant for 5-year, and that will start from September, and that's an infrastructure grant to support phase 1 and complex phase 2 clinical trials developed and delivered from Guildford, really to spread across KSS. And as you can see, one of the first grants that we got was in 2015, and that was a research for patient benefit grant. And that was really a testament to the research design service, actually, particularly at that time, Bernadette Egan. And Bernadette has followed my journey. I can't remember whether she was called, but certainly she's followed my journey over the years. I have to pay a great thank you to the research design service in helping me and my colleagues, and particularly also my research fellows over the years in supporting every single idea that we have. And in fact, whenever we have an idea, we always share it with the design service, and they're fantastic. Sometimes you have to wait, but sometimes the wait is worth it. And these are the testaments of our collaborative links that we've had with the research design service. So these are the fellows that we've been blessed over the years. So these are people that actually generally are research. They have research training fellowships through the University of Surrey, but they've generally been handpicked or have come through on competitive grants. So, for example, Claire Kelly came through on a competitive RFPB award that we had for a PhD, which she recently just got. Then we had Sanjay Matthew, who's one of our first PhD fellows, and now is a colleague of mine back in our department. So as you can see, we are generating homegrown research fellows who are actually now coming back to our region to help us build the portfolio. So actually they're coming back from being a trainee to being fellow consultant and also fellow primary and chief investigator. So that's kind of almost, back to base really. And it's kind of the things that we really want to try and encourage with people who are starting out. So eventually, in the end, they want to try and cultivate the next generation. And that's hopefully where we're trying to encourage them. As you can see from the slide, that's a testament to our program. And so, when one's developing ideas, and themes, it's really important when you're thinking about future grants, it's really important to focus rather than, I'm going to tell you about rare conditions, which I've already done, but I'll share with at the end also. But it's important that, you concentrate on common themes and national and international priorities, which I'll share with you shortly. And so, locally and regionally, we've also been blessed with our research fellows winning some of the KSS supported green shoots. And we've also been blessed, as I said, on a couple of RFPB grants and a couple of the UKRI MRC grants as well. So as you can see, we've started small, and over the years, over the 15, 17 years, we've built it into a kind of a story of themes and priorities, you know, across the 15, 17 years. So as I said, you know, building critical mass, this is really kind of how I did it. This is the, so it really started from myself being a speciality lead for the region. And also, of course, we are one of the biggest regions in the country. We have a population over 5 million. And within our patch, I'm really pleased from myself and my colleague in Brighton, from two of us, we've really, if you can see, we've really expanded to, you know, to 11 colleagues in Surrey who are liver doctors, 7 colleagues in Sussex who are liver doctors, and 2 or 3 in Kent. So you can see the clinical work has translated into the research portfolio, you know, with that. So come clinical will automatically come research, providing you can embrace and engage with your colleagues, all right? And of course, fundamental to that has been our transplant links to London, with our collaborative links with King's College, with my own joint appointment there, where I focus particularly on a national strategy of leading on the rare liver disease program and also on clinical trials. So this was one of the first studies that we did, and this is again following on from some of the excellent work that I've heard from Priya. This was one of the one of the aims. Oh, this is one of the studies that we focused on, and actually this stemmed from looking at what the priority areas are. And certainly when I worked at Frimley, we had a lot of patients who were Nepalese, and I found at that time a lot of them had hepatitis B. So it made me question, you know, how I could really break down the barriers to really try and engage with my patients as well as primary care colleagues to get patients from the Nepalese population to get tested. And this was a NIHR supported study. It was again adopted on the national NIHR portfolio, so it counted towards recruitment. And we found, actually, interestingly, whilst there wasn't much in the way of hepatitis C in this population, we found a lot of Nepalese folk had been exposed to hepatitis B. And current work is now going on to see why that might be the case. But fundamentally, this study allowed us to engage significantly with the Nepalese population, all right? Both in terms of focus, in terms of community-based testing. And in fact, we tested over 1,000 Nepalese folk over a series of testing stations in Aldershot over a course of a couple of weeks. And we found a significant degree of engagement within the population. So using that lesson, using that experience, we then went on to apply for a research for patient benefit grant. So you can see, you know, we're building on the experiences of one community-related project. And again, we were blessed with the £327,000 2.5-year project, which was looking at focusing on our efforts on developing community testing, educational testing program, and then looking to see whether we could try and not only develop that, but also spread that out across our Surrey area. And in fact, as you can see, it's published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases. We set out to have testing stations within community and faith settings in Surrey. And this was particularly looking at a couple of community-based programs, but also faith programs, both in gurdwaras, in temples and mosques. And we found a significant number of patients actually with hepatitis B and C. And this was funded because at that time, there was a nice guidance on improving engagement with minority ethnic populations. So it was true to a national strategy. And that's one of the reasons we got the grant. And as you can see, these are the kind of bullet points of the summary of the study. But you know, you could see that we successfully developed and delivered educational interventions to South Asian migrants to test for hepatitis B and C. And we found a significant number of patients who were diagnosed with those two conditions, and we've successfully completed the loop by engaging with them to get them treated in secondary care. So really putting together the Nepalese work and then the South Asian population of Indians, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis, COVID was really a time where we could put those two experiences together. So we applied in record time, only a couple of weeks, to put together a formidable group. And at that time, this was known as the BAME population, really a minority ethnic population. And we were learning as we went along. But the project was the Cobham National Study, really developing and delivering COVID-19 health interventions. In other words, really making sure that the appropriate messaging was going out to the Black, Asian, and minority communities across UK. So it wasn't just to South Asians, it wasn't just to Nepalese, it was to everyone from minority ethnic group. And I think one of the other reasons we got this grant, because we successfully got the group together in record time, and we delivered. And as you can see, at that time, we had around £300,000, £371,000 actually that was given to us. And I'm really pleased to say that the reports that we gave back to UKRI, NIHR, and RC, that allowed us to extend the study to just completing the study just last month to a total of over £500,000. So this was a study which included a significant project team. As you can see, this is colleagues from both the London hospitals, as well as public health, as well as University of Kent, Chatham House, UCL, London School of Economics, and King's College, Kingston, Brunel, and Mass Gatherings and Global Health Network. As you can see on the right, the project partners were really significant. And of significance was that we had 10 Downing Street on board. We got to have team meetings with 10 Downing Street on a regular basis. NHS England and NHS Digital were pivotal, together with the AHSN and the global health partners were pivotal in those partnerships, together with the CCGs as well as primary care health colleagues across England. And this was the steering group, as you can see, a combination of those groups that I've outlined. And I think one of the really significant learning points from this is that we successfully got community engagement across the board, across England, from all the groups related to culture as well as faith. Okay, and that was a combination of particularly the South Asian Hindu, Sikh, Bangladeshi, then the Black groups across England, and across the congregations of the pockets of high prevalent of BAME populations across England and London. And this was the outline of the project. The main outline, really, I'm just going to skim through it, but the main outline really was particularly to reduce health inequalities, to try and impact on behavioral change. But in particular, it was to reduce COVID-19 risk by delivering appropriately, culturally, sensitive health interventions. And the main kind of research questions we were asking at the time, really the main one, was how do people from minority ethnic communities get COVID-19 health information, and how can that information be impactful? And this is kind of a summary of the study, which has been completed and is being written up at the moment. Phase 1 was an engagement of co-productions, a little bit like what Priya has described, but on a larger level, getting the project partners together, building key guidance documents in multiple languages, then creating short films, both for Black population and for South Asian population, having an interactive element to it, and then using the primary care networks across the land to deliver the messages through primary care groups. And these were the key findings, certainly from phase 1. As you can see, within the first few weeks, we recognized that BAME was not a term that we should be using because the BAME population was not a homogeneous group. There were significant misconceptions about COVID-19 risk. There were cultural values and social norms which had to be addressed. There was fear, anxiety, and loss at the time of the study, and there was significant mistrust and misalignment, during the study. And really, a lot of people were saying that, the current system of messaging at that time favored the white privileged position. And so we actually got Trevor McDonald on board, Adil Ray, and so forth. We got key representation from South Asian and Black African Caribbean group as figureheads and authentic figures to represent the community. Using their influencer role, we created key guidance documents and films. And I can share those with you in due course. These are available on YouTube. And these are a little bit similar to Priya's work in Nepalese folk, but these are similar. This is a South Asian community key guidance documents that we had about COVID-19 at the time. And this is a similar one to the Black communities about testing and getting safe vaccination and encouraging the populations to get tested and vaccinated. This is a little bit about the dissemination model that we had at the time. So we created the key guidance document, we had the short films, and then we disseminated that through knowledge advocates, knowledge champions, and primary care, and so forth. And this is the other more detailed model about how we did that in terms of if the patient were to attend surgery at the time, we had a record of the discussions at the time, and patients were recruited through face-to-face as well as through telelink, through personalized bulk messaging, text messages. And again, this is a community pathway summary of those dissemination records. And this is kind of really the reason why we were doing it, really, is to improve vaccination uptake within minority ethnic communities. That's exactly what we did. So we were the second faith group site to open, at the time. And if you remember at the time, we couldn't cut our hair. I'm sorry, my hair was a little bit long at that time. So, but this was rolled out around February last year. So we successfully rolled out the films, and that allowed encouragement of people to come up and get tested at Sharjah Mosque. And I'm pleased that we actually vaccinated over 1,000 people in the Sharjah Mosque as the direct result, or one of the direct results of our program. And this is just a summary of that, really using the Cobham study as a model for engaging with community health. And we published some of these just as an initial summary of those findings in eClinical Medicine, which is a spin-off journal from the Lancet. And obviously, we've got 3 more publications to come in due course. So moving forward, just in the last few minutes, really moving from a common condition, which has been COVID and hepatitis B and C, moving on to a rare condition where you can use some of the collaborative links, with the international links that we've had. We formed a group in Surrey and Southeast, really, which is the Rare Disease Consortia. And with that, we've gone on to look at Wilson's disease and rare diseases in a lot more detail. And we're one of the named centers supported by NHS England to deliver and diagnose and treat patients with Wilson's disease and deliver the clinical trials program through Southeast England. And these are the results of our hard work, including phase 2 study, or again supported from Southeast England. This is a phase 2 study produced, published in Lancet Gastroenterology and Hepatology. Again, this work, the Collate study, will be published in New England Journal, we hope in the next 3 months. Again, this is a current study we're doing on the FOCUS study, which is again related to Wilson's disease and novel treatments related to that. And in Guildford, we're one of the handful of centers across England and across the world in this multinational phase 3 study. And I'm pleased to say that certainly in Q4 this year, we'll be starting a first-in-man gene therapy study from Surrey on a gene therapy study related to Wilson's disease. So this will be the first study that will allow cure for Wilson's disease, first ever. And these are the final thoughts. As you can see, I've had a scattergram approach to my research portfolio. And you can see, I don't know whether you can see, but on the top here, you've got, on the top here, you've got fatty liver, alcohol-related liver disease, viral hepatitis, autoimmune liver disease. So, sometime when you're starting out research, you've got either you're focused around the etiologies of conditions, and other times you're focused around the layering of diseases. And I guess my research was probably unfocused into lots of disease areas. You heard about primary biliary cholangitis, you heard about Wilson's disease, you heard about health inequalities. So I guess now slowly, after 15 years, my disease is coming to a more focused approach, not only just on the etiology, but also a layered approach. And I guess the layered approach is more on therapy as well as early diagnosis of liver disease. And that brings me to conclusion. I hope I've summarized to you the importance of collaborative links, both locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. You can see these are all the partners with living and breathing collaborations that allowed us to form a successful research trial portfolio to be able to present to you today. Thanks very much.